some of the artists, I didn't want the artists to hear what I was doing with their pieces until it was done, because it was an interpretation. So I'm like, let me just do my thing. But I would talk to them, and I had talked to the gallery owners. I was like, is this weird? Like, you're just kind of stuck there. And they're like, honestly, the artists are all really into the idea because it forces people to look at their art for 3 times as long as they normally would. And so they're seeing different nuances. They're catching different things because they're there and they're just in this zone of being immersed in the art. Visually, sonically, everything, you're just right in there. So it was very cool to be at the gallery and watch people ingest my art, because you release a record and nowadays it goes on Spotify and people all over the world listen to it, but you don't ever see the interaction.
How they're reacting. Yeah.
You know, you don't ever get that, which, you know, can be a little terrifying if they don't like your music, you know, but it's an interesting thing to just see people and they're like, they're staring at the painting, and then the bridge comes in and something I did. So for each composition, as I was doing it, I had an image of the painting there in front of me. So I didn't want to be too literal, but I wanted even just my inspiration of, okay, I'm composing. Let me look at this thing. Oh, man, yeah. I like how the green comes in back that way. Maybe I'll do some kind of pad that kind of shoots in and feels green. You know, this is where we get into this thing of, the mix needs to sound more purple. Well, some of those mixes needed to sound a little more purple, you know, and trying to get into the multi-sensory aspect of it. And so that part was really interesting and really rewarding. So, and then it was just something different. Like if the installation was up for 2 months. Now it's been down for a couple of years, but like to really get it, you want to be in the room and be there with the painting and really get it. But that was also a project I decided not to put on streaming. So you can get it on my Bandcamp, and with that comes, you know, a link to the images themselves, like from the gallery, so you can see exactly what I was working from. But this is where you get back to like that scarcity of art, you know, like the best way to do this is in the room with the art itself. What's also interesting is in the gallery, so I had 2 different versions of the mixes where I had, you know, for what's on my Bandcamp, my regular mixing process. What was in the gallery, I had, we were sponsored by AKG. So I had specific headphones that were at, you know, each of the, that were at every station. So I was able to mix the album knowing exactly what the playback device would sound like. So it's as true, the translation of sonically is as true as it could be, because I mixed
it's literally the headphones.
Yeah, I mixed it for those headphones. How it sounds here is how it's supposed to sound. And that's something that we don't often get, because we send music off to everywhere and people listen to it, whatever, you know, environment they're in. So that was something, cool. That was something that was very, very cool.
Yeah. The combination of the visual and the audio and just like that full, you know, sensory experience sounds like really neat.
Yeah. You know, and we're heading more in that direction. I mean, it existed then, but even in the 3 years or so, 2 years that since Press Play was up, immersive is now such a larger discussion in the audio world.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, actually.
I find it fascinating from an artistic experimentation sense. I currently haven't mixed anything in immersive, and I want to. I'm excited about the possibilities for it. I'm excited about the possibilities for it in hip-hop specifically, because there's not a lot that's being done in the immersive realm in hip-hop. At least created from the ground up with that intent, right? Because you can have a song and then remix it in immersive But if you're creating with that in mind from the beginning, you might make different
Interesting.
compositional choices. You might make different effect choices because you know that's what you're going to be doing. Where, you're essentially up mixing stereo into immersive, but you have everything was based on left and right. So it's a little bit different. I love the idea
Yeah.
of doing something with that in
making it
mind.
part of the creative process. I dig that also. That's cool.
Yeah, I think that can give some slightly different results. So I'm interested in experimenting with that. The thing is that it's extremely cost prohibitive to get into, and I mean, I got a nice studio. I can't even front, but this is stuff I've been putting together over my 20-year professional career or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, there's a couple pieces in here I've had for a very long time. And there's some new stuff that I've been able to get as my career has progressed. The idea of buying another 14 speakers or whatever to come in here and put up all over the place in order to be able to do that is definitely a prohibitive for a barrier for entry. And my space isn't really designed for that. But also, client-wise, no one's asked me to do it. I'm thinking about doing it as like, what's my next creative project going to be? Because I don't want to do an album. Because don't tell my clients, but at some point, people are going to start realizing, doing albums and then making 0.003 cents per song per spin, the math doesn't add up there. Something's going to have to give eventually if we still want albums from independent artists.
Full records.
Yes.
Yeah, LPs.
Yeah. Because unless you're doing well, I don't know if it makes sense to invest 10, 15, 20 grand into an album to get streamed for not even pennies. I think
sad reality.
Yeah, I think artistically it's still the best way to present a broader message. A song has an idea, but an album is like
it's a collation of songs.
Yeah, it's the larger picture, right? And then the song is a zoom in on a concept. The verse is further zoomed in. That's kind of the exposition of the concept. The chorus is your thesis for that chapter, but everything works out bigger into this broader idea. And I think there's just a limit for how broad an idea you can present over 3 minutes, and songs aren't even 3 minutes anymore. So that's me showing my age again. You know what I mean? Like over 2 minutes, over a minute 50. Like there's a limit on how broad an idea that you can present there. And I'm a broad idea type of person. I like a lot of I love landscape paintings, and so my music to me sounds epic and broad in that way. I like big sounds and big delays and verbs and that kind of thing. Like that's where my sound comes from. But there's only so much information you can put into one song. It's just one song,
The LP thing really does give you that full perspective of what the artist is about.
Yeah.
At least in that moment,
It matters, I mean, you can release a series of singles, and singles are fine. And yeah, I listen to playlists just like everybody else. And, I put my jams on there and then I got my collection of jams. But as an artist, I have the want to create more, to create larger concepts. And so
it's a fuller expression of, yourself.
And so, I mean, already we have, maybe not a hard line, but I think there's a division between kind of singles artists and album artists. And I think that's fine, but I think that we always need the space for albums. We need the space for concept pieces. We need the space for installations. We need the space for for whatever may come next, because everything's getting shorter and shorter and shorter, but you definitely cannot give a full concept in a 15-second TikTok video. I just don't think that you can. And that's not a fault of TikTok because that's not what the format is set up as. Like, I don't want to come off as super grumpy old guy and, oh, this social media. I mean, no, I'm not on TikTok and I'm likely not going to be. I'm not that kind of social media person. But it's a great format for that. But let's not pretend like we're getting the full story off of a TikTok spin because the format's not built for that. It's not possible. And I am more of a big full story type of music consumer, I guess.
Yeah. So basically, I wanted to, you kind of touched on it, but you have all these like, personal projects, and you also work on all the other, artists for, records for artists, recordings. How do you balance that, as like an artist yourself versus being an audio engineer, hired gun, producer?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that my own personal projects come out every 3, 4, or 5 years. Press Play was 2 years ago. I'm getting ready to start on my next personal project once I decide exactly what it's going to be and how I want to portray it.
Right. Potentially with spatial audio.
Potentially with spatial audio. I have a thought. We'll get into it in a second because there's a lot of. We'll come back to it in 1 second.
Sure.
But I there's a reason that my albums are years in between because all my time in between them is doing everybody else's stuff. But there comes a point where it's like, all right, well, I've been producing everybody else's records, I've been mixing everybody else's records. And, in any case like that, especially engineering, but production, like it's the service industry. I can mix your record and I could do the best mix I think in the world and do all the fancy stuff or whatever. And then you send it off to the artist and they're like, yeah, but nah, this isn't it. Can we take all that extra stuff off of the bridge? And I'm sitting here thinking, that was the dope part. That's the part that we want. That was the cool thing, but fine. And then you mute it, right? Because it's how it goes. You spend all your time doing stuff, but you can't be so precious about things that, the artist is not going to like every cool delay throw that you put on there, and you're going to have to take it back out at some point. But it's their record. And their name is in big letters on the front, and your name is in little letters somewhere on the inside, unless it's Spotify, because they can't figure out how to do engineering credits for some reason beyond me. And so
ridiculous.
It's just another line. It's just another line. It eventually get to the point. It's like, yeah, all those cool ideas that they didn't let me get off in this album, it's time to do my own thing because I want to do those somewhere. So I'm starting to get to that point. I had a great, very busy 2021 and worked on a lot of projects I'm very proud of. But I'm ready to have my own voice and just kind of do what I want to do for a minute. So we're heading in that way. But I'm also pretty neurotic and picky about my own stuff. My album Doc Savage, which came out, I guess, 2016. That took me 5 years to make.
Wow.
Partially because of everybody else's albums and stuff I was doing. And also, like, I'm just really picky about my own stuff. And not that I'm not picky about my clients' work, but when it's mine, everything is just very stressful because it's like, oh, man. If a client brings me in a track with a snare drum that I hate, well, that's the snare drum that you like, so I'm going to make it sound how you want it, and then that's the end of the story. If it's my snare drum, I'm losing sleep. All that kind of stuff where it's, but I'm getting to the point now where it's like I just, I have that pull in me. It's like I got to create something, and I want to put something out. I want to share my music with the world. Like when I'm dead and gone, I want to have contributed something to the musical lexicon of the history of Earth. When we're all gone because of global warming and the aliens come down and find us and they find the Spotify hard drives or whatever, I want my stuff in there. So whatever, civilization come next, they know, oh yeah, Willie Green has some jams. That's all I want.
Yeah. Leaving something behind.
Exactly. Like that's why I do it.
I feel that.
And but see, that's a place like that's ego, the idea of wanting to be remembered past your time. But I don't think it's a bad use of ego. It's a bad example of ego. That's just...
Yeah. These are things I've been talking about with my therapist recently.
Well, there's a whole thing with how record production and vocal production specifically is all therapy. You get a
Yes, absolutely.
vocalist in the booth. First thing I'm like, well, how was your day? How are you feeling? Where are you at? And I'm trying to pick up on them so I can get in their head and guide them to that vocal. It's all therapy. But yeah, like I don't think it's a bad thing to want to